Joy was a humble housemaid working hard to support her sick mother. But one day everything changed. Her boss accused her of seducing him, a lie she never saw coming. His wife didn't ask questions. She didn't listen. She simply threw Joy into the streets, with no money, no home, and no one to turn to. But just when it seemed all hope was lost, a mysterious stranger appeared, a billionaire, and the son of the president. What happened next will break your heart and inspire you. This is a powerful story of betrayal, courage, integrity, and redemption. Can a broken girl rise from the dust and become something more? Watch to the end and find out how Joy's darkest moment became the doorway to her destiny. The morning sun spilled through the gauzy curtains of the Sani residence like golden syrup, touching everything except Joy and woke. She moved through the house like a whisper, present, needed, but never seen. The only sound that followed her was the swish of her faded wrapper and the soft clap of her sandals against the marble floor. At 22, Joy had learned to carry her silence like a badge. Her mother had once told her, when you are in another person's house, swallow your tears. Let the wall hear them, not your tongue. So she swallowed, every day. The Sani house was a duplex nestled in a quiet estate in Festac, Lagos. The walls were painted cream, the floors spotless, the furniture imported. But the air inside was tense, thin with suspicion and unspoken truths. Joy had worked there for 10 months. She rose before the sun, cleaned the children's rooms, ironed school uniforms, made oats for little Fola and her brother Daniel, washed Agnes's clothes and ensured that the water tank never ran dry. Agnes Sani, the madam of the house, was a woman made of steel and schedule. A respected banker with a sharp tongue and sharper heels, she was rarely home. Most days she left before the cocks crowed and returned after the moon yawned. She barely looked at Joy except to hand over the grocery list or scold her for forgetting to warm the stew. Her husband Femi, however, was always home. Femi claimed he did drop shipping, an online business that allowed him to manage vendors. But Joy noticed he spent more time lounging than working. He'd sit in his upstairs study with his laptop open, a glass of juice in hand, and one eye always drifting. To her. At first, Joy had convinced herself it was harmless. Maybe he just noticed she was hardworking. Maybe he appreciated how well she cleaned the windows or folded the laundry. But it wasn't appreciation. It was hunger. She felt it in his lingering glances, in the way he found excuses to call her upstairs. Joy, the air freshener is finished. Joy, my charger isn't working. When Agnes was gone. There was one afternoon she would never forget. She had bent slightly to wipe the base of the bookshelf in the hallway. Femi's voice startled her. You bend like a river, Joy. Smooth, flowing. She froze. Her sponge dropped from her hand. I said, he repeated, you're too beautiful to be a maid. You know that, right? Joy didn't answer. She picked up her sponge and walked away. Her heart pounded so loud she feared he would hear it. From that day on, she made sure never to be in the same room with him. She avoided eye contact. She kept her wrapper tight and her blouse high. But he kept coming closer, closer with his words, his looks, his threats. The most painful part? The way he would switch. When Agnes came home, he'd become cruel and dismissive. Joy, don't you know how to sweep properly? Joy, your food is tasteless. Again. In front of his wife, he became a man irritated by her presence, as if her very existence annoyed him. Agnes never noticed. But that was what scared Joy the most. Madame Agnes trusted her husband blindly. She once said, my Femi may be lazy, but he's loyal. He can't stand other women touching him. Joy heard it as she served them dinner. She almost dropped the bowl of okra soup. That night, Joy sat in her tiny room in the boys' quarters, watching the ceiling fan whirl and whirl like her thoughts. Should I tell her? Should I risk it? What if she doesn't believe me? She thought about her mother, Mama Nwoki, lying in a narrow bed in Equilobia, her feet swollen from diabetes. Joy's last salary had gone into buying her insulin. She had no savings, no backup plan. If I lose this job, Mama might die. She cried quietly into her pillow. She thought about writing a letter, then thought better. The wall she remembered. Let the wall hear. Each day that passed, Femi's pressure grew heavier. His voice dropped to whispers. His eyes followed her like shadows, and Joy's silence grew thicker. She walked on eggshells and prayed that one day she'd find the strength to speak, or a miracle would find her first. One day Joy was already awake, standing in the kitchen as the electric kettle boiled. She moved with practiced ease, frying eggs, buttering bread, pouring tea, just like every other morning. Except her chest felt heavier. Every corner of the house now held a memory she didn't want. The corridor near the staircase, where Femi had whispered something vile. The hallway by the children's playroom, where he had brushed against her back and pretended it was a mistake. Joy had become a prisoner in a place she worked so hard to maintain. As she placed a tray on the dining table, she felt it again. The eyes. Femi stood by the living room window, arms crossed, watching her. He wasn't smiling. He didn't say a word, but his stare made her skin feel tight, like it didn't belong to her anymore. She turned away quickly. "Good morning, sir," she said, almost in a whisper. He didn't respond. He just kept watching her until she walked back into the kitchen. Joy's heart was beating fast. Every day it became more difficult to act normal. She no longer found peace in her duties. Washing dishes, which used to calm her, now felt like punishment. Even the children had started noticing. "Joy, why do you look sad all the time?" Fola asked one afternoon while she braided her hair. Joy forced a smile. "I'm just tired, my dear." But it wasn't just tiredness, it was fear, and it was building up inside her, like boiling water in a pot with no lid. Later that day, Femi called her to the upstairs study. She hesitated. Her feet didn't want to go, but she couldn't say no. She knocked gently. "Come in," he said. Joy opened the door slowly. Femi was sitting behind the desk, typing something on his laptop. He didn't look up. "I need you to help me clean the bottom drawer. Something spilled," he said. She nodded and walked to the side of the table. She crouched down and opened the drawer. It was empty. "I don't see any spill, sir," she said, still kneeling. She turned to look at him, and that was when she saw it. He had moved from the chair. He was now standing close behind her, his eyes fixed on her blouse, breathing heavily. Joy stood up quickly, fear rising inside her like fire. "Sir, please respect yourself," she said firmly, for the first time. But Femi just smiled. "Joy, I like bold women. Don't act as if you don't see the way I look at you. You're different, Ed. You're not like other maids." Joy backed away slowly. "If you don't stop this, I will tell your wife." His expression changed. The fake smile disappeared. His eyes turned cold. "You'll tell Agnes?" he asked slowly. "Tell her what exactly? That I, her husband, am chasing a maid? Do you think she'll believe you?" "I will still tell her," Joy replied, her voice shaking but determined. He laughed, not loudly, but the kind of laugh that made her blood run cold. "Then be ready to leave this house with shame. I will destroy your name, Joy. I will make her believe that you came after me. And trust me, she will believe me." Joy didn't wait to hear more. She turned and left the room, her hands trembling. She spent the rest of the day in silence, eyes red from holding back tears. She didn't eat. She didn't even sing her usual quiet hymns while washing plates. Her mind raced with questions. Will Madame Agnes believe me? Should I tell her before Femi lies to her? Or should I stay silent and keep enduring? But that silence had already cost her too much. That night she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the wall. The small room behind the house where she slept suddenly felt smaller. The ceiling fan spun above her, slow and tired, like her spirit. She thought of her mother again. Mom Woke was a gentle woman who had raised Joy with nothing but love and struggle. She had taught her that dignity was worth more than silver. But what dignity did she have left? Joy picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over her mother's number. Maybe she could just say it. Everything. Just hear Mama's voice and cry like a child. But her hand dropped. She couldn't. It would only make Mama worry more, and there was nothing she could do from a sick bed. Tears ran silently down her face. The next morning, Joy dressed carefully. She wore a high-neck blouse and wrapped her scarf tighter. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were tired, but there was something else there too, resolve. As she carried the breakfast tray into the living room, She saw Madame Agnes seated on the couch. It was rare to see her home this early. Joy's heart started beating fast. Maybe this is the moment. Maybe I should just speak. But before she could open her mouth, Femi entered the room from the hallway, holding a cup of tea and wearing a serious expression. Agnes, he began, his voice low, I've been meaning to tell you something important. Agnes looked at him. What is it? Femi sighed and glanced at Joy with a fake look of hurt. It's about this maid, Joy. She's been acting strange. I didn't want to say anything to embarrass her, but she's been trying to seduce me. Joy gasped. What? That's not... Keep quiet, Agnes snapped, rising from the chair. How dare you speak when a man is talking? Joy's chest tightened. Madam, he's lying. He has been the one... Oh, please, Agnes cut in. I know my husband. He would never stoop so low. Why didn't you say anything before now, You wait till he complains, and now you try to cover yourself? Joy felt her throat close. Her lips trembled. Because I was scared, madam. I knew no one would believe me. You're right about one thing, Agnes said coldly. No one will. She turned to the guards. Take this girl out of my house. Let her carry her shame with her. Joy dropped to her knees. Please don't do this. Madam, I beg you, my mother is sick. I have nowhere to go. But Agnes had already turned away, and Femi just watched, unmoved, victorious. The guards dragged Joy to the gate like a criminal. Her bag was tossed outside. The gates closed behind her with a loud bang. Joy stood in the street, barefoot, humiliated, heartbroken. The only sound she could hear now was the soft echo of her own voice, crying out to a sky that refused to answer. The wind was rising when the metal gate of the Sani residence slammed shut behind Joy. She stood there in the dim glow of the streetlight, her small travel bag at her feet. Her hands trembled. Her eyes, wet with tears, stared at the house where she had given 10 months of her life, 10 months of early mornings, quiet patience, unspoken suffering. Now she was nothing but a stain they had washed off. Joy stood frozen for several minutes. Her mind couldn't keep up with what had just happened. Her ears were still ringing with Agnes's voice. Take your shame and go. In Femi's smug silence. It hurt more than words. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to catch her breath, but there was no air to breathe. Only betrayal. She bent slowly, picked up her bag, and took her first step into the darkness. The estate was quiet at that hour. Most people were asleep behind closed doors. The few that were outside barely looked her way. Just another girl with a bag, probably visiting or leaving someone. But Joy had no one. Her phone buzzed, but the battery was already on 3%. It was her mother. She had sent a voice note earlier in the day. Joy couldn't bring herself to listen, not now. If she heard Mama's voice, she would collapse completely. Where will I sleep tonight? She didn't have an answer. She checked the small change in her purse. In 50. It wasn't even enough for a bike ride, let alone a hotel or transport to Equilobia. Her last salary, meant to come in a few days, was now gone with her job. She passed a few kiosks, but they were all closed. She asked an elderly gatekeeper for a place she could sit till morning, but he waved her off quickly. I no get Wahala this night. Go away, I beg. Joy kept walking. When she reached the main road near the estate junction, she looked around. Cars drove by in bursts. The air was thick with smoke and dust. Neon signs blinked above locked stores. There was an empty shop with a crumbling front. Its shutter was half pulled down. She stepped inside. It smelled of rust, urine, and old paper, but it was dry, and for tonight, dry was enough. She dropped her bag and leaned her back against the wall. She pulled her wrapper tightly around her shoulders and slowly sat on the floor. For the first time in years, she let herself cry out loud. Not silent tears, not hidden sobs in the boys' quarters, real, aching, breathless crying. Crying for her sick mother, who would wonder why she hadn't called. Crying for the job she lost not because of a mistake, but because she dared to speak the truth. Crying because she felt dirty, stained by the lies told about her, and the fear that they might follow her for the rest of her life. She cried until her body was too tired to continue. Then slowly she lay on the cold floor and tried to sleep. But sleep did not come. The night passed in fragments. She would close her eyes for a few minutes, only to be startled awake by distant shouts, the rattling of passing buses, or the echo of her own name being called in a dream. By 5 a.m., Lagos was already waking up. She heard traders pushing carts, calling out their goods. A man nearby lit a cigarette, the match flaring like a small fire in the dark. A group of boys ran past, laughing loudly. Joy sat up slowly. Her back ached. Her eyes were swollen. She stood, dusted her skirt, picked up her bag, and walked out into the early morning light. She looked around and realized she had no plan. No destination, no idea what to do next. But something inside her whispered, "Keep moving. Don't stop." So she began to walk. She followed the road leading to mile 2, hoping to find a bus park. Maybe she could beg a conductor to let her ride halfway to Equilobia, or at least call her mother from a shop. She would explain everything. She would cry. Maybe Mama would pray with her, give her the strength to face the shame. But she hadn't eaten in almost 24 hours. Her legs were growing weak, her clothes were dusty, her scarf stained. Her face carried the weight of the night before. The road she walked was busy now, cars honking, danfos speeding by, traders setting up stalls. The city had come alive, but she felt invisible, until suddenly, she wasn't. She didn't hear the horn. Her ears were filled with thoughts, loud, painful thoughts, and her eyes were blurry from lack of sleep. She stepped into the service lane without thinking. A loud screech. Tires burned against the road. A black SUV swerved dangerously, barely missing her by inches. The driver slammed his door and jumped out. "Are you crazy?" he shouted. Joy froze. Her knees gave way slightly. Her head dropped. She didn't have the strength to answer. "Do you want to die?" he barked, walking toward her. "Are you blind? You almost got yourself killed." Still she said nothing, but something in her face made him stop. The anger on his face softened. His eyes scanned her dusty wrapper, the small travel bag, her tear-streaked cheeks. He noticed the trembling hands. Then he saw the tears. Not fresh ones, but the ones that had dried overnight. Are you okay?" he asked again, this time much more gently. Joy raised her eyes slowly. For the first time in hours, she looked someone in the face. Her voice was low and cracked when she finally whispered, "No, I'm not okay." The man paused. His expression softened immediately. He was tall, with well-kept hair, neatly ironed clothes, and expensive shoes that had just stepped into the Lagos dust. He looked like someone who didn't belong in this part of town, like someone who had drivers and security, not street dust on his shoes. He took one cautious step closer. "What happened to you today?" he asked, his tone calm and respectful. Joy opened her mouth, but no words came. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked, her mind was still reeling from the events of the night before. She looked down at her wrapper and dusty sandals, her hands wrapped tightly around the strap of her worn travel bag. The man noticed everything, the shaking fingers, the way her shoulders curved inward, like someone who had been trying to protect herself for too long. He exhaled softly and looked around. The street was coming alive, people hurrying to work, cars honking, hawkers shouting prices, but he saw only her. "Come," he said gently. "There's a place just down the road where we can sit. You need water, and maybe food." Joy looked at him again. She didn't move. She had learned never to trust easily, especially not men, especially not after what Femi did to her. But this man wasn't forcing anything. He didn't touch her. He didn't raise his voice. He simply waited. Her legs ached. Her head spun, her belly groaned from emptiness. And so, for the first time since she was thrown out, Joy nodded. He led her quietly to a nearby open cafe that had just begun setting up for the day. The waiter hesitated when he saw her, but one look at the man's expensive wristwatch and clean accent made him clear a table without a word. Joy sat down slowly. The man asked for bottled water and hot tea. As the waiter left, he turned to her. "My name is Chaiki," he said. "Can you tell me yours?" "Joy," she whispered. "Joy," he repeated softly. "That's a beautiful name, but you don't look joyful today." She gave a small, bitter smile. "Because I have no joy left." The bottle of water arrived. She opened it with trembling hands and drank deeply. Her throat burned. Her stomach turned, but it welcomed the liquid. Then, slowly, like a dam breaking, her story poured out. She told him everything. The lease, the betrayal, the harassment, how Femi used power against her, and how Madame Agnes believed his lies without asking questions. How she was dragged out like a criminal and left with nothing. How her mother in the village was ill and depending on her. How she slept under a shop's roof with rats and mosquitoes for company. How she almost gave up walking this morning. How she almost let that car hit her without caring. Jake said nothing throughout her story, no judgment, no interruption. He simply listened. When she was done, she looked up, ashamed. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said all that. I don't even know you." Jake shook his head gently. "Don't be sorry. You've held this pain for too long. You needed someone to hear it." Joy lowered her gaze. "I don't know what to do anymore. I have nowhere to go." He tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "What if, for today, you let someone help you?" She looked at him, confused. "Why would you want to help me?" Chike leaned back, his eyes scanning the sky as if searching for the right words. "Sometimes," he said, "the people who deserve kindness the most are the ones who never ask for it. The ones who keep enduring, keep surviving, even when they have nothing left." Joy's lips parted, unsure how to respond. "Come with me." "Awesome," he added. "Just for today, let me give you rest." Joy froze, her heart pounded. All the alarms in her head rang. She had heard this before. "Let me help you." That's what Femi had said. That's how it started. "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "No, I can't. I don't know you." Chig nodded slowly. "That's fair. You have every right to say no. But hear this." He reached into his wallet and placed a small ID card on the table. It read, Chike Odinaka, Director, CO Holdings. Below that, a signature with a crest she didn't recognize. "I won't touch you. I won't ask anything from you. I just want to take you to a safe place where you can clean up, rest, and eat. After that, you decide what happens next." She stared at the ID, the name, the crest, the quiet confidence. There was something about him that felt different. Still, she hesitated. "You could be lying." Chiggy smiled kindly. "I could be. But what do I gain from lying to a broken girl who has nothing? If I meant you harm, I wouldn't need to lie." He stood up and placed a few Naira notes on the table to pay for the tea. "I have a house not too far from here. If you feel uncomfortable, I can call a woman I trust. She can stay with you until you're ready to leave. But don't go back to the street, Joy, please." The cafe was now full. People were watching. Joy looked down at her calloused hands. She had nothing left to lose. She nodded slowly. Jake gave her a warm smile, then led her outside to his SUV. She hesitated before getting in. He opened the back door instead of the front seat. "You can sit back there. Take your time." She climbed in. The engine started, and for the first time in days, Joy exhaled. Outside, the city raced on. Inside, something had begun to shift. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe hope. The ride through the city was quiet. Joy sat in the back seat of the SUV, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The clean leather interior smelled of citrus and polish. Nothing like the sweaty Danfos she was used to. The air conditioning cooled her sunburnt skin, but her heart still beat nervously. She watched Chicky from behind as he drove, calm, focused, with both hands on the wheel. He didn't ask any more questions. He didn't talk unless necessary, and that made her even more unsure. Why is he helping me? What does he really want? She kept asking herself. Joy had seen enough of the world to know that kindness from strangers was often just another disguise. But something about Chicky didn't feel like a trap. Still, she didn't let her guard down. They turned off the highway and entered a quieter area. Trees lined both sides of the road. Soon they pulled into a gated compound. The security guards at the entrance saluted quickly and pressed a button. The massive black gates rolled open without a word. Joy's eyes widened. The compound was large and beautiful. Neatly cut grass, water fountains, sculpted flowers. The driveway curved into a wide front yard where a large cream-colored house stood. Elegant, modern, peaceful. She had never seen anything like it in her life. Chick stepped out and opened the rear door for her. "Come in, you'll be safe here." Joy stepped out slowly, gripping her bag like a lifeline. A middle-aged woman wearing a clean apron appeared from the entrance. She had a calm face and a motherly air. Chick waved her over. "Auntie Aya, please take her in, give her something warm to eat, and let her rest in the rose room." "Yes, sir," Auntie Aya replied, nodding with respect. Chick turned back to Joy. "This is Madam Ia. She's like family. She'll take care of you. I'll be in the study if you need anything." Before Joy could reply, he turned and walked away through another part of the house. Madam Ia led her gently inside. "My dear, come. You need a bath and food. Don't be afraid, okay?" Joy followed in silence, still trying to understand what was happening. The house was even more beautiful inside. White tiles, glass doors, smooth furniture. There were paintings on the walls and a staircase that curved like it came out of a magazine. She was led upstairs to a room that smelled of roses. The bed was large, the sheets fresh. There was a soft robe folded on the bed and a clean towel placed carefully beside a sparkling bathroom door. "You bathe. When you come out, food will be ready," Madam Aya said gently. Joy stepped inside the bathroom and slowly locked the door. She stood before the mirror. Her face was dusty, her hair rough, her clothes stained. Her reflection looked like a stranger, a girl who had been bruised by life. She peeled off her clothes and stepped under the warm water. The first drop touched her skin and broke her. She cried, but not like before. This was different. These were not tears of fear, but tears of release, tears that washed away Femi's lies. Agnes's betrayal, the cold floor of the abandoned shop, the hunger, the humiliation, the hopelessness. She stayed under the water for a long time. When she stepped out and put on the robe, she felt almost human again. Still shaken, still unsure, but cleaner, lighter. Downstairs, a small meal had been prepared: fried plantain, white rice, and pepper stew. She ate slowly, politely. Madam Ia watched her with a smile. "You are safe here, Joy. Eat and rest." When she finished, Madam Ia gave her a new nightgown. "Olga bought this morning. He said he would need a size for a small woman who had a strong heart." Joy's eyes widened. "He bought this today?" "Yes," Madam Ia nodded. "He said a storm might bring a special visitor." That evening, Joy sat in the rose room, staring out the window at the garden. It had started to rain lightly. Drops slid down the glass like soft footsteps. Then came a knock. She turned. It was Chaiki. He stood at the door with a gentle smile. "Can I come in?" She nodded slowly. He stepped in and sat on the edge of the chair near the window. There was silence for a while. Then he said, "I wanted to wait until you were ready before I explained anything." Joy looked up. "You're wondering who I am, why I helped you, why I didn't just drop you off at a police station or give you a little cash and walk away." She nodded. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "My full name is Chiki Odinaka. I run an investment company called CO Holdings, but that's not the full truth." He reached into his jacket and brought out a wallet. He opened it and showed her a clean ID. It read, "Chiki Odinaka, son of President of FENA, Odinaka National Identity Commission." Joy's breath caught in her throat. She blinked. "You're the president's son?" Chiki smiled gently. "Yes." She stood up suddenly, shocked. "Sir, I had no idea. I'm sorry, I didn't." He stood too, holding up his hand. "No, don't apologize. You don't owe me that." Joy stepped back. "But why would someone like you stop for someone like me on the road?" Chike's eyes softened. "Because I've been broken before. Maybe not in the same way, but I've felt the kind of pain that makes you want to disappear. And someone once saved me. Someone who didn't care who I was. So now I do the same." Joy stared at him, stunned. He continued, "You're not just a maid, Joy. You're a woman with a voice, a heart, and a future. I see that. I see you." Her eyes began to fill again. "I don't know what to say." Chike smiled. "You don't have to say anything. You just have to believe this. Your life is not over. Not even close." It's just beginning. He turned to leave but paused at the door. Sleep well, Joy. Tomorrow we start something new. Then he was gone. Joy stood frozen in the middle of the room, overwhelmed. She looked down at her clean robe, her washed hands, the untouched bed, and she whispered to herself for the first time in days, maybe there is still hope. Outside, the rain continued to fall, quietly cleansing the night. But inside that house, something had begun to bloom again. The sun rose slowly over Ikoyi, casting golden light over the windows of the mansion where Joy had spent the most peaceful night of her life. For the first time in many days, she hadn't been afraid to close her eyes. She hadn't been startled awake by footsteps. She hadn't cried herself to sleep. Instead, she had slept in a warm bed, under soft sheets, in a room that smelled like flowers and safety. When she woke, she lay still for a few minutes, letting her eyes take in her surroundings again. It felt like a dream she didn't want to wake up from. But it was real. The bed, the silence, the calm. It was all real. She got up slowly, wrapped the robe around her, and opened the door to find Madame Ia waiting with a tray of breakfast, boiled yam, fried eggs, and hot cocoa. Good morning, Joy, the older woman said warmly. Joy bowed slightly. Good morning, Ma, thank you. You slept well? Yes, Ma, better than I have in a long time. Good. Olga said to tell you to meet him downstairs in the study when you've eaten and dressed. He left something for you. Joy's heart skipped. Left something for me? Madame Ia smiled. You'll see. 30 minutes later, Joy descended the stairs in the simple peach-colored dress Madame Ia had laid out for her. Her hair was combed back, and her face looked refreshed. She walked slowly toward the study with quiet steps. The study door was open. Chike stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the garden. He turned as she approached and smiled. Morning, he greeted gently. Good morning, sir. Pleased, he said, gesturing for her to sit. Let's forget the sir for now. Just call me Chike. She nodded, nervous but curious. He walked to his desk, picked up a black leather folder, and handed it to her. I want to show you something, he said. Joy opened the folder slowly. Inside were several neatly arranged documents. She squinted at the first one. It had her name in bold at the top. Certificate of Business Name Registration. Joyful Bites Catering and Events Limited. She gasped. She flipped to the next page. A stamped bank document for a newly opened business account in her name. And then a third page. A land purchase agreement for a small shop space in Surulere. Joy looked up at him, confused. I don't understand. Chike sat beside her. You once told me you loved cooking, that it was your dream to start a food business one day. Her mouth parted. But I said that only yesterday. He smiled. That was all I needed to hear. Joy was speechless. I used the early hours of this morning to put everything in place, Chike continued. There's $100,000 in the account. I've also arranged for a consultant to mentor you for the first 3 months. She'll help with menus, pricing, staff hiring, permits, everything. Joy's eyes widened. $100,000? He nodded. Chike, she whispered, her hands shaking. I don't even know how to thank you. This is too much. Taman, he shook his head. It's not too much. It's only the beginning. What happened to you was unfair. But your future doesn't have to be shaped by that pain. You are stronger than what tried to destroy you. Tears gathered in her eyes. Nobody's ever done anything like this for me. Chike reached into his pocket again and brought out a small black velvet box. He placed it in her hands gently. Open it, he said softly. She opened it slowly. Inside was a simple silver pendant, shaped like a bunny in mid-flight. Graceful. Free. He took it out and fastened it around her neck himself. This dove, he said, represents hope, peace, freedom. When you look in the mirror and see it, I want you to remember that your story didn't end on that roadside. It only started there. She sobbed then, not out of pain, but from the overwhelming weight of kindness. She clutched the pendant tightly and cried freely, the kind of tears that only come when a burden has finally been lifted. Chike didn't say anything, He just waited. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but glowing. "I feel like I'm dreaming," she whispered. "You're not," he said. "This is your life now. You are in charge of it. Build it, protect it, and never forget what you've survived." Joy wiped her face slowly, still in awe. "But Chicky, why me? Out of all the people you could help, why did you stop for me?" Chike looked down, thoughtful. "Years ago," he said slowly, "I went through a rough time. Very rough. People see the son of the president and assume life is perfect. But I've had my share of darkness too. One day a woman I barely knew helped me when I was at my lowest. She never asked who I was. She just gave me her kindness. And I promised myself that whenever I saw someone in the same place, I would do the same." Joy listened, hanging on every word. "She didn't wait to find out if I was rich or important," Chicky continued. "She just believed I deserved another chance. I wanted to do the same for you. Because the world was cruel to you. But that doesn't mean the whole world has to be." Joy covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what else to say." He smiled. "Then don't say anything. Just promise me that you'll rise from this and help someone else someday. That's all I ask." She nodded. "I promise." Chicky stood. "Good. A driver will take you to see your new shop tomorrow. You'll meet the consultant and we'll begin setting up your kitchen equipment and branding." He paused. "I won't be here for the next few weeks. Work is calling me abroad, but I'll be watching from afar." Joy stood too, suddenly afraid. "But will I see you again?" He smiled gently. "When the time is right, yes, and don't worry, our story isn't finished." Then he stepped out of the room, leaving her alone with the chub around her neck, the folder in her hands, and a new world waiting for her to walk into it. That night, Joy couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, staring at the stars. The pendant rested softly on her chest, its cool metal touching her skin like a quiet promise. She was no longer a broken maid. She was a woman reborn, and though she didn't know what tomorrow would bring, she knew something for sure. She would never be the same again. 3 weeks later, Joy stood outside her new shop in Shrewsbury, staring at the signboard being mounted. Joyful bites. Homemade goodness, heart-made dreams. The sun was warm on her skin. Laughter drifted in from nearby school children. She pressed her hand gently to the silver dove pendant resting on her chest. Everything had changed. Inside the shop, 2 young girls she had just employed were wiping down tables. Another girl stood at the stove learning how to prepare her special pepper sauce. These were girls like her, maids who had been dismissed unfairly, girls with bruised hearts and broken pasts. Now they had hope. And it all began with one man. Cheek, he had left Lagos after helping her set up the basics. Since then, he hadn't called. He hadn't sent any messages. She had no way to reach him directly. Still, she kept his cards safely in her Bible, worn but precious. She thought about him every day. Sometimes she wondered if he would ever come back, or if he had simply disappeared the way miracles often do, quietly and without warning. That evening, Joy sat in her modest apartment, scrolling through the news on her new phone while sipping Zobo. She stopped at a headline that made her freeze. Breaking news, President's son, Chiki Odinaka, opens multi-million-dollar tech hub in Dubai. She clicked on it. There he was, wearing a navy blue suit, shaking hands with dignitaries. Cameras flashed. People smiled around him. Joy stared at the screen. Her heart pounded. He really is the president's son. Tears filled her eyes again, this time not from pain, but from awe. The man who sat across from her in a roadside cafe, who handed her food, who listened without judgment, who gave her dignity when she had nothing. He was a prince in disguise. She clicked off the screen, too overwhelmed to keep reading. The pendant on her chest felt heavier now, as though it carried not just silver, but memory. 2 days later, Joy arrived at the shop early. A letter was waiting for her, delivered by private courier. No return address, just her name written in clean handwriting across the envelope. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Joy, by now you've probably seen the news. I told you I'd be watching from afar. You've done more than I imagined, not just building a business, but building people. I won't ask for thanks. This was never about me. It was about you seeing the strength you already had. The dove you wear isn't just a symbol of peace. It's a promise. When you least expect it, I will return. Not as a stranger, but as a friend. Until then, keep flying. Chaki, Joy pressed the letter to her chest. She smiled through her tears. Not every story ends in love. Not every prince stays to build a castle. But sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the one that gives you wings and watches you fly. She looked outside. A girl passed by barefoot, carrying the tray of oranges, eyes downcast. Joy opened the door and called gently, "Sister, are you hungry?" The girl turned, surprised. "Yes, Ma." "Come in," Joy said. "You're safe here." As the door closed behind them, the dove pendant glinted softly in the morning light. Hope had not only flown home, it had found a place to stay. The story also reminds us that our status does not define our worth, and sometimes the greatest transformations begin with moments of pain. When the world turns its back, there are still people, often unexpected, who carry the light of compassion. Above all, it teaches that helping others rise, without expecting anything in return, is one of the purest and most powerful forms of love. What did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. I would be glad to read them. And guess what? There is another interesting moral story coming in a few days, so please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications bell so you'll be the first to watch when I upload it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your loved ones. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.